What would you do if you found out the person you've been disrespecting all along, the one you thought was just the janitor, was actually the CEO of the company? Now imagine the shock when you realize she's been quietly watching every single move you make, knowing exactly what's been happening behind the scenes. This is exactly what happened to the staff at Blake & Keys Realty. Monica Blake, the self-made black millionaire CEO, decided to go undercover at her own real estate company. Disguised as a janitor, no one recognized her, no one suspected a thing, and that's when the real drama started. As she gathered secrets, overheard shocking betrayals, and uncovered deep corruption within her own team, she knew that the truth was too dangerous to ignore. The next day, Monica walked into that office, revealed her identity, and fired every single person who had betrayed her trust. From fake commissions to shady deals and outright theft, the truth was more twisted than anyone could have imagined. Stay with us as we dive into this jaw-dropping story of power, deception, and one CEO's ultimate revenge. Monica Blake was not the type of person to let things slip. As the CEO of Blake & Keys Realty, a multi-million-dollar real estate empire she had built from the ground up, she had become known not only for her sharp business acumen, but also for her quiet yet undeniable presence. At 42 years old, Monica had shattered glass ceilings in an industry that hadn't always been kind to people of color, let alone a black woman at the top of a Fortune 5. With a reputation for efficiency, precision, and a no-nonsense attitude, she was both admired and feared by her competitors, clients, and employees alike. But despite her success, things had started to feel wrong. The numbers weren't adding up the way they used to. Leads, once a steady stream of potential clients, were dwindling. Sales were inconsistent, and clients who had previously signed long-term contracts were leaving without giving clear reasons. Monica was known for being incredibly meticulous and detail-oriented, so when these patterns began to emerge, she couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. She had spent years building this company, watching it grow, making tough decisions, and staying on top of every little detail. So why was everything suddenly falling apart? For weeks, Monica had quietly observed the situation, but the more she looked into it, the more her suspicions grew. She had trusted her employees, especially her senior staff, implicitly, but was that trust being betrayed? Was there something going on behind the scenes that she couldn't see? Monica's assistant, Sophie, had been sending her updates, but they felt off. Sophie didn't seem as eager to provide the full picture, and Monica began to suspect that some people were holding back crucial information. Had she been too busy to notice, she wondered? Had she become disconnected from the daily grind? She knew something had to be done, and that's when the idea hit her, a plan so bold, it was almost reckless. She decided to disappear. Monica didn't inform anyone, except for Sophie, that she was going to be taking a break. She had grown tired of the board meetings and the endless calls from clients who never seemed satisfied no matter how hard she worked. She needed time away from the spotlight, but more importantly, she needed to see what her company was really like when she wasn't around. So she stopped answering calls, stopped showing up to the office, and stopped being the face of the company. To everyone outside her inner circle, it looked like a sudden and unexplained disappearance. Monica had always been a figure of strength and authority, so her absence left a void that no one could fill. Days passed, and Monica watched from the shadow. Her staff scrambled to keep the company running without her. No one knew where she was, or why she had disappeared. But Monica was keeping a close eye on everything. She'd instructed her assistant to pass along vague messages to her employees, telling them she was taking some much-needed time off. This created just enough of a buffer, allowing her to observe how things would unfold without any interference. Behind the scenes, things were starting to fall apart. The employees, who had been so used to Monica's oversight, began to slack off. Some took advantage of her absence, skipping meetings, ignoring emails, and cutting corners. It didn't take long for her suspicions to turn into confirmation. Leads were being mishandled, emails were ignored, and a few agents had stopped following up with clients altogether. It was as if the whole machine had come to a halt, but that wasn't the worst of it. Monica discovered something far more disturbing. The office manager, Gregory, had been working with a rival real estate company, funneling leads and contracts to them in exchange for kickback. Worse still, it appeared that some of her most trusted employees were complicit in this scheme. They had been taking credit for deals that weren't even their own, manipulating numbers to make themselves look good while leaving her company to rot. It became clear that the trust she had placed in her team had been misplaced. Monica, who had spent years building this company from the ground up, could not believe what she was seeing. She had poured her heart and soul into Blake & Key's Realty, and now, it seemed like it was all crumbling because of the very people she had hired to help her succeed. The betrayal was unbearable, but Monica wasn't the type to let her emotions dictate her next step. She wasn't going to let this slide. After weeks of gathering information and observing her company from the shadows, Monica knew what needed to be done. She had to get to the bottom of this, and she would do it herself. She was no longer just the CEO in a corner office. She had to go undercover. Monica had seen the power of disguises in her personal life before, how easily she could blend in and observe things from the outside. She knew how to look invisible when she needed to, and that was exactly what she was going to do now. She couldn't let anyone know she was still watching. She couldn't let anyone suspect she was still in control. Monica Blake was about to become the most unlikely character in her own company, a janitor, cleaning up the mess that others had made. She wasn't just going to confront her staff, she was going to watch them. She was going to learn the truth from the inside, and then make the decisions that would change everything. She had no idea just how deep the rot went, or just how shocking the fallout would be when the truth finally came to light. But one thing was certain. The CEO was about to make her move, and no one was prepared for what was coming. 1 week after Monica Blake's disappearance, a new face appeared at Blake & Key's Realty. Her name was Mo, and she arrived quietly, like a shadow in the night. Her clothing was deliberately unremarkable: baggy jeans, a loose hoodie, and a simple head wrap that covered most of her hair. Her glasses were large enough to obscure her eyes, giving her an aura of anonymity. The employees at the office barely noticed her, and why would they? No one ever paid much attention to the janitors, who came and went after hours. They were part of the background, mere figures who cleaned up after everyone else. Mo started working the night shift, long after the office had emptied and the fluorescent lights flickered off. She spent most of her time mopping floors, wiping down desks, and taking out the trash. But she wasn't just there to clean. Beneath the mundane task of mopping floors, Mo was on a mission, one far bigger than any janitorial duty she'd ever had. Monica Blake wasn't just watching from the sidelines anymore, she was in the trenches. Disguised as Mo, she had one goal: to expose the corruption festering inside her company. Through her glasses, Monica had hidden a tiny microphone and camera tools that would allow her to hear and record everything without ever being detected. The minute she clocked in on her first night, her pulse quickened with the thrill of going undercover. No one knew who she was. No one even looked her way. She was the invisible woman, moving unnoticed through the office like a ghost, and it felt oddly powerful. As Mo, Monica quickly began to absorb the office's atmosphere. It wasn't the tight-knit professional environment she had envisioned when she first started the company. There was tension in the air, an undercurrent of something unspoken, something that didn't belong. As she walked through the dimly lit hallways, she overheard snippets of conversation, each one more damning than the last. On her first night, Monica's ears picked up a conversation between two real estate agents, Chad and Lindsay, who were laughing near the break room. Their voices were hushed, but still carried an unmistakable tone of disdain. "Did you hear how Mr. Patel's accent got in the way during that last showing?" Chad snickered, his voice dripping with mockery. Lindsay joined in. "Yeah, that guy was a nightmare. Hard to understand and didn't even know what he wanted." "What a joke." Monica froze for a second, her heart sinking as the realization hit her. These weren't just agents. They were supposed to be the faces of the company, the ones representing the brand she had worked so hard to build. Instead, they were mocking a potential client because of his accent. It was nothing short of appalling, but she didn't react. Not yet. Mo kept moving, continuing her cleaning duties with a level of precision that ensured no one suspected her intention. She overheard more whispers, more conversations that turned her stomach. In the conference room, she could hear Jenna, one of the top agents, boasting to her co-worker, Derek, about how she had faked commission reports to cover up a bad month. "I just inflated the numbers a little, you know. It's not like Monica's ever going to look that closely. She's too busy with other things." Jenna's voice was filled with smug satisfaction. Derek laughed. "Yeah, she's always been a bit too soft. She trusts everyone, which is why we get away with it." Monica felt the sting of betrayal cut deep. Jenna had been one of the most trusted agents at Blake & Keys. Monica had always believed that people like her were the backbone of the company, the ones who worked hard, who delivered results. Yet here she was, admitting to falsifying reports to make herself look better. It was a slap in the face to everything Monica had built, but it didn't end there. Monica's surveillance continued as she moved through the office, silently collecting evidence. She overheard Gregory, the office manager, the same man who had been working behind her back, having a conversation with another employee. Tasha, lock those leads in the safe. Monica's not going to notice. Anyway, Gregory said, a casual tone masking the malice in his words. Tasha, the receptionist, agreed with a chuckle. She's too distracted to pay attention to the details. I mean, she doesn't even come in anymore, right? Monica's blood ran cold. Gregory was the man who had been orchestrating deals with a rival company behind her back. He had been locking away leads, hiding crucial opportunities from the people who needed them most, her clients. Monica had known that something was off, but hearing it from Gregory himself confirmed her worst fear. Yet the worst revelation came when she stumbled upon something even more dangerous. Someone was pocketing company money. On her third night, while cleaning near the accounting office, Monica overheard a hushed conversation between Carl, the office's accountant, and a colleague. "You gotta stop this, Carl," the colleague warned. "This isn't going to end well." "The boss," Carl interrupted with a scoff. "Who cares about her? She's out of the picture. We can do whatever we want. As long as we cover our tracks, no one will ever know." Monica's jaw tightened. Carl, one of the people she had trusted to manage the financial side of the company, had been embezzling funds, and worse, he was planning to continue doing it, confident that no one would notice while she was out of the picture. The pieces were falling into place. Blake and Keys had become a house of cards, and Monica had spent weeks collecting the evidence she needed to bring it all down. But she knew that in order to make real change, she couldn't act hastily. She needed the full picture. She needed to wait for the perfect moment. As Monica had the chance to see the true nature of her company, unfiltered and raw. It was everything she had feared and more, but in the quiet hidden corners of the office, she gathered the power she needed to reclaim her empire. For now she stayed quiet. The storm was coming, and when it hit, no one would be prepared for the truth. Monica's time as Mo the janitor had given her valuable insight into the dysfunction running rampant inside Blake and Keys Realty, but now she needed more than just overheard conversation. She needed the truth, the hard, irrefutable evidence of the betrayal she suspected had been festering under her nose for months. It was time to dig deeper, to go beyond the gossip, and find the hidden files, the secret deals, and the lies that were buried behind closed doors. Each night, after everyone had gone home, Monica stayed late. Her disguise as Mo allowed her to slip past security cameras and blend into the shadows. She became a fixture in the office, so invisible that even the cleaning staff didn't question her presence. She worked in the quiet hours, using every opportunity to look into places that should have been off limits. She pulled open drawers, sifted through paperwork, and checked emails that were meant to stay hidden. Her first discovery came in the form of a folder, the kind of file you'd expect to be locked away or at least tucked into a secure cabinet. But here it was, sitting on an unmarked desk in an unused conference room. It was labeled Priority Listings, but when she opened it, the first thing she saw made her heart race. Inside were several high-value property listings, but none of them were being marketed through Blake and Keys Realty. Instead, they were being funneled to a competing firm that had recently gained a reputation for swooping in on deals at the last minute. The names of the properties and their owners were all there, alongside details of upcoming showings and off. Monica recognized the names of a few clients who had been in talks with her team just days before. Someone inside her company was leaking these properties to the competition, ensuring that Blake and Keys lost out on deals that were meant to be theirs. But why? Monica's mind raced. Was it someone trying to sabotage her, or was it just greed driving the betrayal? Whoever was behind it clearly had no respect for the company, or for the clients they served. Monica felt a mix of anger and disgust as she filed the information away in her mind. She would need to confront the person responsible, but first, she needed more proof. The next night, she dug into the financial records, and that's when she uncovered something that made her blood run cold. Several payments had been made to an untraceable account, all under the guise of miscellaneous expenses. The amounts weren't huge, at least not enough to raise any immediate red flags, but they were consistent, and each one seemed to follow a pattern. Payments were made just after major deals were finalized. These payments weren't being tracked properly in the system, and there was no legitimate reason for them to exist. It looked like someone was siphoning off small amounts of money from each transaction. transaction, pocketing it for themselves. Monica's heart pounded as she looked at the amounts: cash payments, taken directly from the company's accounts, and hidden under vague descriptions like vendor fees or client services. Whoever was behind this had been careful. They hadn't left any obvious trail, but they had still left enough of a pattern for Monica to see it clearly. Someone had been skimming money off the top. But the real shock came when she found a forged signature, her signature on a property flip contract. Monica's hand trembled as she stared at the document. It was a sale of one of her personal properties, a piece of land she had been planning to sell privately, yet here it was, a signed contract, marked with her name and a price that was significantly lower than the market value. The signature was unmistakably hers, but Monica knew she hadn't signed it. She hadn't even seen the deal. As she compared the document with her real signature, the differences were glaring. It was a crude forgery, but whoever had forged it had gone through great lengths to make it look real. Monica couldn't believe what she was seeing. Someone had used her name to sign off on a shady, underpriced sale, and even worse, that property was now in the hands of a buyer who had no right to it. It was becoming clearer by the second. This was no longer a matter of misplaced trust. This was outright theft. But nothing prepared her for what she discovered next. Monica had always trusted Alan Green, the company's COO. Alan had been by her side since the very beginning. He was the one person she had relied on to handle the day-to-day operations, the one person she believed would always have her back. He had a sharp mind for business, and his loyalty had been unquestionable, until now. As she sifted through some of his personal emails, Monica's stomach twisted into knots. Hidden in a private folder was a series of communications between Alan and a private equity firm. The subject lines were vague, but as she read further, it became clear what was happening. Alan had been in talks with the firm to sell Blake & Keys Realty. Behind her back, he was plotting to cash out on the company they had built together, her company, and pocket a multi-million-dollar payout in exchange for turning over ownership. The email threads revealed everything: confidential valuations, discussions about selling the company without Monica's knowledge, and even plans to phase her out over the next few months. Alan had been working in secret to transfer the power of Blake & Keys to a private firm, making her appear irrelevant in the process. Monica felt like the world was crashing down around her. Alan Green, the man she had trusted implicitly for years, was planning to betray her in the worst way possible. He was trying to sell her company, the company that she had built with her blood, sweat, and tears, all for his own personal gain. She stood frozen for a long time, the weight of what she had uncovered almost too much to bear. But through the shock, one thing was crystal clear: Alan had no idea that the woman he was plotting against was standing right outside his office, disguised as a janitor. Monica knew that it was time to act, but she wasn't going to rush. She had the evidence now. She knew who the traitors were, and she had the power to expose them. But the game was just beginning. She had to be smart, and when the time came, she would make sure that everyone paid for what they had done. It was a typical Monday morning at Blake & Keys Realty, but nothing about it would be typical. The usual bustle of employees filing into the office, chatting over coffee, and setting up their laptops was interrupted by the hum of anticipation. Today, the conference room was filled to capacity with employees, all of them chatting and speculating about the purpose of the sudden meeting called by the CEO, who had by now been absent for weeks. At the front of the room stood Alan Green, the chief operating officer, looking smug as ever. He'd been acting as if everything was normal. No one suspected a thing, or so he thought. He was a man of business, an orchestrator of deals, someone who had always been quick to take control. Yet today, as he stood there confidently, there was something brewing just beneath the surface. Monica had spent the past week gathering everything she needed. The moment of reckoning had arrived. The employees filed into the room, murmuring amongst themselves. Gregory, the office manager, whispered to Jenna and Chad, but as he did, his eyes kept glancing nervously toward the door. They all knew something had been off ever since Monica had disappeared, but none of them expected this. What had the CEO been up to? Why the sudden meeting? What were the consequences of their actions? Then at precisely 10 a.m., the door creaked open. The room fell silent as the janitor, Mo, walked in. She moved with quiet confidence, the same figure that had been blending into the background for weeks, but now she stood at the center of it all. Her glasses were large and hid her eyes, just like always. She wore her head wrap, baggy clothes, and had the same quiet, unassuming demeanor. At first, everyone looked at her confused. Mo was the janitor. Why was she here? Some of the employees snickered, assuming this was some sort of joke. A low murmur spread through the crowd as people exchanged glances, unsure of what was happening. Then Monica Blake, did the unthinkable. Without a word, she removed her glasses, and as the lenses slipped off her face, the truth was revealed. A collective gasp filled the room. The realization hit everyone at once.
The janitor, Mo, was Monica Blake, the CEO of the company. The woman they had all thought was just an invisible part of the office, someone who barely registered as a presence, was the very person they had been betraying. The room grew heavy with disbelief. Monica's voice cut through the stunned silence. I hope you all kept your receipts, because your time here is up. There was no hesitation, no ounce of sympathy in her tone. This was the moment she had been building toward, the moment when she would expose everything. The employees had thought they were untouchable. They had thought they could steal, lie, and deceive without consequence. But Monica was no longer just the CEO in the corner office. She was now the judge, jury, and execution. The first to speak was Jenna, one of the agents who had been caught mocking a client's accent. She stammered, trying to play it off. Monica, we didn't. But Monica didn't let her finish. With a swift motion, she pressed a button on her laptop, and the conference room screen lit up with the first of many shocking revelations. Audio played. It was Chad and Lindsay, caught mocking Mr. Patel's accent. Did you hear how Mr. Patel's accent got in the way during that last showing? Chad's voice echoed through the speakers. Lindsay's cruel laughter followed. What a joke. He couldn't even understand us. The room fell silent as the faces of the employees flushed with embarrassment. Some of them looked down, refusing to meet Monica's gaze, while others shifted uneasily in their seats. Monica's eyes burned with anger, but her voice remained calm. You thought you could get away with this, didn't you? She clicked again, and the next audio recording played. Jenna's voice filled the room, her smug tone brimming with pride. I just inflated the numbers a little. Monica's too busy to pay attention. She won't notice. Gasps of shock swept through the room. Monica's grip on the podium tightened, but she remained silent. Jenna immediately began to stammer in protest. I didn't mean it like that, Monica. Please, you have to understand. But before she could say another word, Monica clicked again, and the video footage began to play. On the screen was a shot of Alan Green, the COO, confidently discussing plans to sell Blake & Keys Realty to a private firm. In the video, Alan could be seen walking into his office, casually speaking on the phone. We'll finalize everything this week. The valuation looks good, and once we close, we'll pocket millions. Monica has no idea what's coming. She's out of the picture. The room fell into stunned silence. Alan Green, the man Monica had trusted more than anyone, had been planning to sell her company out from under her. He was already making plans to cash in on her hard work without a second thought. His face turned white as the footage played, and his body stiffened. Monica, please, you don't understand. This isn't what you think. Alan started, his voice shaky as he stood up. Monica didn't let him finish. I understand perfectly, Alan. Alan took a step toward the door, clearly trying to make a break for it, but before he could take another step, the security team stepped in, blocking his path. Alan Green, you're under arrest for embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy to sell company assets without authorization. Please come with us. The shockwave of betrayal hung heavy in the room. Monica turned to the crowd, her voice cutting through the tension. You all knew what was happening. You knew what was going on behind my back, and some of you thought I wouldn't find out, but I did. Every single one of you is responsible for destroying everything I've worked for, except for a few, the ones who treated Mo with respect, who didn't think I was beneath. She paused, her gaze sweeping across the room. 27 employees were fired that day, but there were 3 who stayed. 3 employees who had treated Monica Blake with decency and respect, who had no part in the conspiracy, and who had remained loyal to the company, even when they didn't know who was watching. Monica nodded to them. You'll stay. You'll help me rebuild. The others were escorted out, their faces filled with a mixture of anger, desperation, and fear. The betrayal was complete, and the price had been paid. As the last of the fired employees left the room, Monica turned back to the 3 who remained. We've got a lot of work ahead of us, she said, her voice resolute. Let's get started. The empire she had built was now hers to rebuild, and this time it would be on her terms.
Monica Blake stood at the edge of her empire, looking out over the city she had built. The wreckage of Blake & Keys Realty was still fresh, but it was nothing she couldn't fix. She had been knocked down, betrayed by the very people she trusted, but this was only the beginning of something bigger. Monica had a vision, one she had always dreamed of but never fully realized until now. This was her chance for a rebirth, a new chapter that would transcend everything she had created before. She called it the Great Reset. In the months following the mass firings, Monica didn't waste any time. She began rebuilding her team, but this time, it was different. She wasn't interested in the same kind of business culture that had led to the company's downfall. No more cronyism, no more toxic loyalty. Monica was determined to create a company that thrived on transparency, trust, and integrity. One of her first moves was to rehire employees from diverse backgrounds, people who had been overlooked by the industry's elite, people with fresh perspectives and untapped potential. Monica knew that success in real estate wasn't just about making deals, it was about understanding the needs of the communities you served. Too often, the industry had been dominated by a homogeneous group of individuals who didn't represent the true diversity of their clients. So Monica sought out young realtors from underserved communities, those who knew firsthand what it meant to fight for an opportunity, to carve a path in a system that often ignored them. Her training programs were rigorous, but rewarding. She emphasized the importance of integrity in every transaction, urging her team to be transparent with clients, avoid shortcuts, and always put people before profits. Monica didn't just want employees, she wanted partners who believed in the same mission she did. She created a culture where everyone's voice mattered, where every person was encouraged to contribute their ideas and concerns. She had learned firsthand how easily power could corrupt, but she was determined to create a workplace where integrity was the foundation. Monica's efforts didn't go unnoticed. In just 6 months, Blake & Keys Realty was back on top. But this time, it wasn't just about profitability, it was about creating a business that truly represented what real estate could be, a vehicle for change, growth, and empowerment. Word spread quickly about the company's new approach. Clients who had once turned their backs on Blake & Keys began returning, impressed not just by the high level of professionalism, but by the clear dedication to community and integrity. Monica's new team, fueled by passion and purpose, exceeded expectations in every area. It was about more than just the bottom line. Blake & Keys became a symbol of resilience, proof that a company could rise from the ashes of scandal and betrayal, stronger and more principled than ever before. As Monica watched the transformation unfold, she couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come. The young, ambitious entrepreneur, who had once been an outsider in the real estate world, had now become the symbol of a new wave of leadership. Her journey had been painful, but it had shaped her into someone who no longer took her power for granted. She had learned the value of humility, the understanding that leadership isn't about command and control, it's about trust and respect. Monica never underestimated the power of being underestimated again. There had been a time when she had been just the quiet CEO in the corner office, hardly noticed by the people she was paying to run her company. But now, she knew the truth. The power had always been in her hand. The real transformation wasn't just about Blake & Keys, it was about her own growth, her own evolution into a leader who could make decisions not out of fear or ego, but out of strength and principle. And of course the reminder that Mo, the janitor, had been more than anyone had ever realized. While others had dismissed her as invisible, Mo had seen it all, heard it all, and understood it all. She had spent the quiet nights observing, learning, and gathering the strength needed to take control of her company when the time was right. In the end, Monica knew that she was more than just a CEO, she was a symbol of resilience, a beacon of what could be achieved when a person refused to let anyone underestimate their potential. The janitor, Mo, was always right there, silently watching, listening, and learning. And when the time came, Mo didn't just take back control of Blake & Keys, she rewrote the rules of the game. As she looked out at her company's new beginning, Monica smiled. She knew the journey wasn't over. There would always be challenges to face, always new obstacles to overcome. But now, she wasn't just ready for them, she was equipped to take them on with a team that shared her values. The CEO had come back, but this time she wasn't going anywhere. Monica Blake's journey wasn't just about a dramatic act of firing a toxic team, it was about reclaiming power in a way that no one expected. She proved that true leadership isn't always about the polished suit, the corner office, or the title on a business card. Leadership is about watching when no one thinks you're watching, observing the true nature of those around you, and understanding that real influence comes from knowing when to act and when to remain invisible. In a world that often values appearance over substance, Monica's transformation of her company was a testament to the power of perspective. She had spent years building Blake & Keys Realty, only to discover that the very people she trusted the most had been undermining her vision. It wasn't the employees in the corner office who brought the company down, it was the ones at the desk next door, the ones laughing behind closed doors, the ones who thought they could hide in plain sight. Monica didn't need to stand behind a glass desk to lead. She understood that true authority wasn't about being seen, it was about being aware, alert, and prepared to make the tough calls when they counted. The real insight came when Monica went undercover, posing as Mo the janitor. She entered the company's heart of darkness, unnoticed and underestimated. In that position, at the lowest rung of the ladder, she learned more than she ever would have from the boardroom. She saw what people truly valued, who was willing to betray their colleagues, and who was willing to do whatever it took to climb the corporate ladder, even at the expense of integrity. The quiet and the unseen, ironically, gave Monica the most powerful vantage point. Her undercover journey was painful. What she discovered in the shadows shattered her trust in the people she had once called her team. It was shocking to hear the gossip, the fraud, the betrayal, but it was necessary. Monica didn't just save her company from financial ruin, she saved it from itself. She rebuilt it, piece by piece from the ground up, and while the cost of truth was steep, it was worth every ounce of pain. She wasn't about to let the rot fester. Instead, she tore down the toxic foundation and began anew. Rebuilding Blake and Keys was never going to be a simple process. Monica knew that, but she also knew that you can't simply redecorate when the foundation is rotten. The whole structure needed to be torn apart and reimagined. Monica's decision to hire people from diverse backgrounds, to elevate those who had been overlooked, to bring in young realtors from underserved communities, wasn't just a moral stance. It was a calculated strategy. She was building a company that didn't just survive on profits, but thrived on integrity and community. It wasn't about finding quick wins. It was about long-term sustainability, driven by trust, transparency, and respect. Through this process, Monica learned something crucial. Sometimes the most valuable lesson is knowing who to keep and who to let go. The people who remained loyal through her transformation were the ones who saw the bigger picture, the ones who believed in her mission and value. They weren't afraid of hard work or doing things the right way. They understood that true success didn't come from shortcuts. It came from building something worth keeping. And then there was payback, but it wasn't about vengeance or revenge. It was about reclaiming what was hers. When Monica fired 27 people, including her trusted COO, Alan, it wasn't just about getting even. It was about sending a message. No one gets to play with the company's future. No one gets to exploit others for personal gain. Leadership wasn't about power for the sake of power. It was about ensuring the future was built on solid ground. Monica's actions were a warning. She wasn't someone to be taken lightly, and her company wasn't a playground for the corrupt. Through it all, Monica became more than just a CEO. She became a symbol of resilience, of empowerment, and of unseen power. She had started at the top, but she learned that sometimes the best leaders start at the bottom, where the real work is done. By reclaiming her company and transforming it into a beacon of integrity and opportunity, Monica proved that true power comes from within, not from the title you wear or the desk you sit behind. What would you have done in Monica's position? Imagine running a successful company, only to discover that those you trusted most were betraying you behind your back. Would you have gone undercover, like Monica, to uncover the truth? Or would you have taken another? It's a tough decision, but one that many of us can relate to, especially when we've seen toxic behavior or betrayal at work. Have you ever worked somewhere where leadership had no idea what was really going on? Maybe there was a toxic culture, unethical behavior, or a team that wasn't aligned with the company's values. How did you deal with it? Were you able to stand up for what's right, or did you feel like you had to keep quiet? Drop your stories in the comments below. We read every single one and we'd love to hear how you navigated tricky situations in the workplace. Your experiences could inspire others who find themselves in similar situations. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more jaw-dropping CEO stories, workplace drama, and undercover missions that will keep you hooked. We've got tons of stories to share that'll make you rethink everything you know about leadership and corporate life. Thanks for watching, and remember, always act like the CEO is watching, because sometimes she is. Stay tuned for more, and we'll see you in the next video.